Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming Lost chapter, Fear for Home, featuring the new character who is making his debut in the game, Reks from Final Fantasy XII. The event synergy units are Reks, Barret, Basch, Garnet, Shelke, and Alphinaud. Reks' full kit including his burst and FR will be making their debut. Reks will also be getting his FR Echo boards. Garnet will be making her return as a synergy FR burst unit for the event. We will be fighting 2 death arms which has 180 million HP each. The boss is immune to turn deletion and delay, which include delay from breaks. Throughout the fight, their turns will be framed. The turn requirement is 35. The HP requirements is 15,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Like most other Shinryu fights, the boss gains increased brave damage and gain resistances at start of the fight and 79% HP threshold. Bringing a support like Charlotte, Aerith, Ramza, Yuna, Iroha, Pernello, Garnet, Selpha that grants damage boosting aura will make your fight easier. As the boss gains substantial boost to their defenses with the auras, it is important to inflict debuffs that lower their defenses. On the screen I have listed down the key utility that you can consider when forming your party for this fight. The boss force gauge will allow the boss force gauge faster charging properties whenever your party acts. It will counter any attacks that are using any elemental attacks other water and thunder. Non-elemental attacks will be unaffected as well. To cancel the boss force time, you need to meet a strict set of requirements. Your party need to have a member with an special effect buff or characters with overhead icons. The unit's FR needs to melee and deals thunder element brave damage along with inflict a debuff on the enemies. The unit that means all requirements is only Reks. However, you can have another effect with overhead buff and bring either Reno or Dash for the FR cancel purposes. Characters with FR who have overhead buff and are non-elemental or water or thunder are Reks, Pernello, Pain, Squall, Zack, Terra, Warrior of Light, Charlotte, Garnet, Jack Garland, Quina, and Mog. The fight feature HP gate mechanics that will not be disabled until the boss uses its tentacle knock at the 69%, 39%, and 29% HP thresholds. Tentacle knock is a single target brave plus HP attack. The attack will not trigger while you are in burst or summon phase. Usually in the past, we will go into our burst or summon phase and nuke the boss to bypass the HP threshold. However, this time round, we need to let the boss take a turn to use that ability or we will not be able to lower the HP threshold until the gate released mechanic is triggered. I will cover with more examples in the later part of the video. It is also noted that the threshold attacks and counter mechanics will trigger even the boss is under paralysis, confusion, or debuff that prevents HP damage like Pain's Mute Wing or the standard HP silence debuff from Arsila or Kefka. The counter mechanics will not trigger when you use a call ability. It is important to bring unit to avoid counter mechanic, gear/plus, as that attack will dispel all buffs of the unit that trigger it. However, like most boss counter mechanics, the boss cannot counter if they are being launched. You can bring launchers or launch units like Rains, Lael, Kais, and Selpha. Do note that BT finishers does not trigger launch, so it is best to avoid bringing elemental units that can potentially trigger the counter mechanics. Overall, this is a fight that should be manageable if you have the right units. Do note also the fight feature a tight turn count as well. As we are no longer have Lufania plus fights, the boss guide will be focused primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. If you do not bring any force chargers, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. Throughout the fight, the boss has a permanent force gauge properties that raises the charging rate of its force ability by 4% when your party acts. The boss will also counter any elemental brave damage except thunder, water, and non-elemental with Gear/Plus. Gear/Plus is a single target guaranteed brave plus HP attacks that dispel all the target's buffs. The boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. At the 100% threshold, the boss will use Photon Laser or Photon Laser Plus. The type of force ability will varies depend on your party condition. If your party does not have any allies that have a special effect or overhead buff, the boss will use Photon Laser Plus, which is a brave gain, followed by a guaranteed AoE brave plus HP attack. The attack will bypass all HP and brave damage nullification effects. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with a counter of 10 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, the boss will heal back 80% of the HP damage received. In other words, you will be dealing 20% of HP damage that you could dealt until you cancel its force time. To deal force weakness on the boss, you need to use a Thunder melee FR that inflicts a debuff and has someone or the inflictor himself that has overhead buff active. Do note that Enchant Thunder on non-elemental melee FR unit that inflict debuff does not work for the condition. Upon dealing force weakness, you will cancel the boss force time. The FR that can meet the conditions are Reks, Dash, and Reno. Do note that both Dash and Reno needs to be accompanied with allies with overhead buff to meet the overhead buff condition. Now let us go through the key mechanics of the fight. Let us go through the HP gate mechanics that revolves around the boss tentacle knock threshold attacks. The boss will use tentacle knock, which is a single target melee brave plus HP attack when their HP depletes to the 69%, 39%, and 29% HP threshold. Like most threshold attacks, they won't use this ability while you are in burst or summon phase. For this fight, the threshold attack is accompanied with a HP gate mechanic. A HP gate is the point where you cannot lower the enemy HP any lower until the mechanic condition is met. For this fight, the gates are at the tentacle knock HP threshold triggers, which is 69%, 39%, and 29% HP threshold. The gate will only be removed after the boss uses the tentacle knock mechanics. Be mindful of the gate's threshold when you are going through your FR phase, or you might end up losing lots of damage potential. Let me illustrate with some examples. Example 1. Let us say the boss HP is currently at the 70% HP threshold. You will use your summon attack. Your party damage will be limited to 1% of the boss HP until the gate release mechanic is triggered. Let us say you can do 10 million in the summon usually, but because of the HP gate, you will do only 1.8 million HP damage, which equates to 1% of the boss max HP. So in other words, you will lose 8.2 million HP damage potential due to the HP gate mechanic. Example 2. The boss HP is at 49%, player uses a unit burst phase. All damage dealt to the boss will be limited to 10% of the boss max HP or 18 million. You cannot do any more damage until the boss HP is lower to the 39% HP threshold. An FR charged burst phase can go up to a minimum 100 million HP. So you will lose probably up to 82 million HP damage if you didn't let the boss remove the gate. So how we can handle this troublesome HP gate mechanics? To maximize damage, off-turn non-elemental or Thunder FR like Reks, Dash, Reno, Beatrix, Core or Machina will work so much better here. You can enable Warrior of Light or Zac, but you need to be mindful of the high initial brave down auras that the boss applies at the start of the fight. Paired them with counter or trap units for better effect. Instead of using your burst phase for damage, use your burst to set up the unit's BT aura and charge your force gauge. Try to bring party members who pairs well with your FR conditions. Bring tanks or damage mitigator so that you can tank those threshold attacks. Make use FR Echo to extend your force time. Let us cover the boss other mechanics. At the start of the fight, the boss will activate player initial brave down. This field effect will apply an aura that lowers your party initial brave stats down by 500%. This might handicap units that rely on initial brave mechanics like Warrior of Light or Zack a bit, but it can be circumvented with other mechanics like using Core applying his oath buff. Like most boss fights, the boss has a standard attack rotation. All its attacks are guaranteed hit. Gear Slash is a single target melee brave attack. Execution is an AoE melee brave plus HP attack. If its brave is high, it will use Tentacle Lash, which is a direct single target HP attack. As the boss are immune to turn deletion and delay, which also include from breaks, deploying an off-turn strategy team comp is more effective than using a standard rush down team comp. Before I end the guide, let me cover the new member of the group, Reks from Final Fantasy XII. Reks is a Thunder Element melee-based damage dealer who has tanking capabilities. In my opinion, he is a damage dealer who wants to be a tank, but he does not have full tank aspect of abilities. He relies heavily on his frame debuff from his X, and he does not have a last stand. It is probably due to his reckless behavior that is why he got killed early in his own game. It is irony that he is a lot stronger than the unit that murders him in the game. Let us briefly go through his kit. Shall we? His S1 or Blade combo is an AoE melee brave plus HP that raises one stack of his overhead buff for 6 turns. The overhead buff Dalmasca's Loyal Soldier will build up its stacks depending on the following conditions. 1. It will increase by 1 when Reks received brave damage. 2. It will increase by 1 when Reks received HP damage. 3. It will increase by 1 when Reks use his S1. The overhead buff will grant Rek 20% attack up, 20% max brave up, and raises his defense by 40%, and it also boosts the party defense by 40%. The max stacks you can get is 5. If you have 1 stack, he will trigger his preemptive strike, remove obstacle, which is AoE brave plus HP attack with 2 HP dumps. When the stacks are 2 or more, he will use remove obstacles plus, which is an AoE brave plus HP attack with 4 HP dumps. In general, he is technically a better Snow who is Thunder Element with weaker tanking capabilities. Upon using the plus variant of his preemptive strike, his overhead stacks will decrease by 1. His S2 is a single brave plus HP attack with 50% that inflicts 40% attack debuff. It also grants a framed cover buff on the party for 10 turns. The cover grants the party member 20% HP damage resist. His EX is single brave plus HP attack with splash damage and inflict his frame debuff Striking Thunderstorm for 6 turns. Striking Thunderstorm is a Thunder Imperil debuff that lowers the target brave damage by 50%, HP damage dealt to your party by 30%, lowers its HP damage resist down by 20%. His LD is his hardest hitting attack and grants his framed buff War Aegis along with a free skill use on his next turn. The buff will allow Reks to lower incoming HP damage by 50% and brave damage by 67% for himself. It also grants the following effect to the party by Grant Party Thunder Enchant, raises the party brave damage resist by 40% and 20% HP damage resist. With his LD boards, he will also give the party HP damage by 20%, stolen and gain max brave overflow by 30%. His AA will heal the party by 20% of their max HP and raises the attack up by 30% and brave damage cap by 20%. Generally, Reks is a damage dealer with tanking capabilities from the combination of his EX debuff and framed buff from his LD. He grants an effective 72% HP damage mitigation and 58% for his allies, as the damage mitigation is not additive. His only source of healing is from his AA, and do take note that he does not have last stand passive, which means he cannot tank fatal attacks or boss attacks that have strong brave gains. Due to his preemptive strike mechanic, it is advisable to build a budget Reks up to his LD for farming resources purposes. The LD is the most crucial weapon for any character, and it is also a decent LDCA. Before I continue with its burst, let us recap on his force time conditions. Upon using his FR, he will gain 5 stacks of his overhead buff and inflict his damage mitigation debuff striking thunderstorm on all targets for 6 turns. 1. Dealing thunder element attack will give your 30% HP damage bonus during his force time. Reks give the party thunder enchant via his LD buff. Paired him with thunder or non-elemental units. 2. Having an active special effect active will give you another 40% HP damage bonus. Not all characters have special effect, so be mindful who you bring with Reks. You can abuse this condition with supercharging for 90% per turn. 3. Absorb or reduce brave damage taken. Reks apply cover buff for his allies with S2. So he is always in position to cover for his allies when the boss attacks are single target. Overall, it is a generic FR conditions that are easy to meet. With his hybrid damage mitigation and brave damage reduction, and if his EX debuff is active on the boss, he can function well as a tank or abuse his follow-up damage attacks. In fights that does not feature heavy HP attacks or have attacks that bypass brave damage nullification, Reks can function well as the party's sole tank. However, do be mindful that he does not have adequate healing utility or last stand passive. It is not recommended to bring Reks to HP heavy attacks fights unless your party have adequate healing utility support. Now, let us proceed to cover on his BT. The BT aura lasts for 6 turns. It will also allow Reks overhead buff stacks to retain at level 5 and triggers an additional remove obstacle plus preemptive strike. In other words, Reks will always do 8 HP dumps before the start of his turn. His BT aura boosts the party brave damage by 50%, HP damage up by 20% and raises brave damage cap by 50% and max brave cap by 30%. Depending on what you intend to use Reks for. He needs to be fully geared if you want to use him for endgame fights like Shinryu or Spiritus. Otherwise, he can also functions well as a budget cycle quest farmer thanks to his hard-hitting preemptive strike.